podcast today, I have Mr. Aaron Pierce of Pierce Aviation. Mr. Aaron, thank you so much for coming in today and visiting with us.
It's a pleasure, as always.
Where'd you grow up?
Oh, gosh, all over. I was born in Covington. When I was 6 years old, I moved into the Virgin Islands. Came back about the age of 12. Went to Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Went to school there until I was 16, 17. And then back to Covington and then Hammond.
Right on. Yeah. What caused the migration, the movements? Was it a family business? What was it?
Yeah, I guess you could say so. My family was in banking, and I really do believe I had the luxury of growing up in the Virgin Islands for a tax shelter. I think that's why I was there. But I don't know. I wasn't doing the books. But yeah.
Well, hey, listen, it's amazing as you get older, you look back on things that happened when you were a kid and you go, oh, that's what that was.
Right.
That's awesome. So did you work in banking? What was your first profession?
I was a musician. I played the trombone in a big band from the time I was 14.
Was that in this area?
It was, yeah, the North Shore Big Band.
Right on.
Yeah, my dad was a musician. He was a professional, but that was one of his careers, and he got me into it.
How did you play only the trombone, or you played other instruments?
Well, professionally, only the trombone, and I hadn't picked it up in so long now. I'd probably be terrible, but I still play the guitar and the piano a little. I play
as you know, I play the guitar as well. Wish I'd learned the piano, but I never got to. But something I have discovered, not to pat either of us on the back, but something I have discovered that a lot of the people that I find throughout history who are achievers or people that I admire, a lot of them had musical talent.
I've noticed that with pilots too. A lot of pilots play musical instruments, and a lot of engineers do. It's interesting to me.
When you were growing up, did you ever watch the old Jacques Cousteau episodes? Did you watch that?
I did.
Me too. Yeah. And I was telling somebody about it the other day about how great it was. And a buddy of mine, he'd never seen it. And I said, you don't know who Jacques Cousteau is?
How old was he though?
He's just a couple years younger than me. He was like maybe 43, 44, but he just didn't, his people weren't into it. For some reason, he just missed it.
Okay.
So I said, dude, you got to see this. And we went and got on YouTube and looked at, some of the episodes. And to see what those guys were doing, the way they were doing it, it was all on them. There was no backup. They had engineers, they had welders, they had, the most skilled technicians in the world on the Calypso,
yeah.
Building these devices that had never been built before. And one of the things that I noticed in one of the early episodes where he was kind of fleshing out, what they were doing, he was trying to cram a lot into the episode. Something that they did was, once a week or twice a week, they had a band from all of the people on the boat. Everyone played an instrument.
No kidding.
No kidding. They would sit, and I'm not just talking about fiddling around. I'm talking about these people would sit down and play. There were people that played the violin, people played the clarinet, the flute. People were these people were excellent musicians. And again, I just noticed that. And I was like, damn, that goes along with, there's something about the spirit of that goes along with people who do uncommon things. It happens too often, I think, to just be a coincidence.
Well, it used to be considered part of a well-rounded education to know music, or at least learn an instrument.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Used to.
Yeah.
That's the topic for another day. So from musicianship, you studied, I believe you told me you studied business in school.
Actually, I was interested in criminal law initially.
Really?
Yeah, oddly enough. And then I was a deputy marshal while I went to college.
And then I know that.
I switched majors to physics. That was a passion I developed. And then I couldn't help it. The birth canal was pointed at the bank. I eventually wound up there, which was great for me to have. I mean, what a great way to be educated, to have everyone interested in the good outcome of your education. So I owe a huge debt to my family for the amount of effort they put into my education. It was great.
How old were you when you started working in banking?
25.
25. That's young for a banker.
Was it? I don't know.
Well, maybe not for a teller, but for a banker.
Well,
yeah.
I was a teller.
Oh, they started you out in the mailroom, huh?
Well, no, I wasn't. I didn't qualify for the mailroom. I was front line. Yeah, it took me. I was a terrible teller too. It took a lot of effort for me to get up. When I hit like 140 transactions in a day, I still remember when it happened. I was just so delighted. I was the slow one. People would avoid my line. And I was like, oh God, not him again. He's very nice, but very, very slow. So no, it's after that. I mean, just I had a lot of opportunity there. Of course, I had been in sales before as a hobby. You remember the old Nextel phones?
Yes.
Yeah, I worked for a company out of Baton Rouge that was a Nextel reseller, and man, I just knew a lot of people in Hammond. It really wasn't the phones really did sell themselves. I mean, it was great. That direct connect thing. So
that was the Wild West days of cellular.
It was.
I tell young people about that, and they're like, "Huh." They don't know, but when it happened, it was just like
I was making $100,000 a year out the trunk of my car, while I was a cop and going to school full time. It was insane.
There's that hustle.
There's
that ambition.
No. It was like it was a weird time, and then next thing you know, because I was moving so many units, all these other cellular companies were trying to hire me. They had headhunters to go out and find good sales guys. So I wound up doing indirect sales for Sprint along the Florida Gulf Coast, and all of the from Mobile to Panama City, all the Ritz cameras, Office Depots, Office Max, Circuit
Anywhere
Cities.
you could put an installation.
Oh yeah, and then train all of the sales associates on the product and sell it. And it was I was a kid.
I was going to say, at what age were you doing that?
23, 24. Yeah, it's like it was insane, you know. But that was a lot of fun. But going to the bank was definitely the best thing. I think from a career path, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I would recommend to any young man interested in going into business that he become a banker for a while, work at a bank, and learn cash accounting. That's so important. Like people, I'm rated in a lot of different airplanes, but the most valuable thing that I know is cash accounting.
Really?
The ability to balance a checkbook. And I know it sounds ridiculously simple, but you know what makes airplanes fly, right?
What?
Money. Mm-hmm. It's true. Everything costs money, and if you're the guy in the middle that's paying all the bills, you really, because in a management company, that's what you do. You pay everything and then rebuild people. It can be ridiculous, especially if your company is growing quickly. It's I would if it wasn't for my education at the bank, I would have gone bankrupt by now.
So when you moved from banking, then what was the next step? Did you just decide, aviation? How'd that play out?
So aviation was a hobby, and my cousin and I flew together, and it was just kind of I used to flight instruct on the weekends and at night. I loved training people how to fly one specific little model of airplane, the Mooney, if you're familiar with it.
I've heard of them.
It's a high-performance single-engine piston. It was a lot of fun. I did high-performance checkouts and Mooney checkouts for people, and then I did some instrument instruction and stuff, but it was a hobby. And then my cousin decided he wanted to buy a jet, and I really did try to talk him out of it. I thought it was a terrible idea. I mean, I knew just enough about airplanes to know that they were expensive.
What year was that?
That was in, I want to say 2004 when he started talking about it. And
you knew enough to know it was a slippery slope?
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, so I couldn't talk him out of it. And so then he settled on one particular make and model, and he put a deposit on it, and it was the Eclipse jet. And I tried to talk him out of it again. And no, I fought my path, but tooth and nail the whole way. And against my better judgment, I feel like I was forced into a certain amount of success in spite of myself. So it just kind of happened. I didn't have any control over the situation. But we wound up with one of these things, and there was some finagling, buying positions and everything, and it's, kind of like like boats. Sometimes the position itself, the order position has a value. You can buy it and then take delivery of one sooner. We wound up doing that with the jet, and so next thing I know, we have this jet, and we're about to take delivery of it, and Gary looks at me. He's like, "Well, who are we going to get to fly it?" And I'm like, "I'll do that."
I'm your guy.
Yeah, let me try that. And I mean, you have to consider who but family would ever let you do something like that. I mean, come on. I had zero time in turbines. Like, yeah, I'd flown pistons and stuff, even piston twins and, high performance, complex, whatever.
How long did it take you to be prepared from where you started, which was you were experienced? How long did it take you from being, very experienced with your instruments and all that stuff to being jet ready?
I don't know if anybody's ever really ready, just suddenly you start moving it over 300 knots and you just kind of hang on to the tail. Was there
a lot of like homework and stuff you had to do?
Oh, yeah.
Prepared?
Yeah, there was. And then there was training. And then it was really cool because back then the airplane wasn't even certified yet. And so I got to be one of the first pilots trained for an airplane that was just coming out. Nobody had seen yet. And it was super cool. It was a lot of fun. So they didn't have simulators for it. The guy that gave me my check ride had typed himself. So basically, there was nobody to certify him. And as the guy with the FAA that was responsible for the certification, somebody has to go first. Right? So the guy that taught me was the guy that signed me off was the guy that went first, so he could sign other people off.
Got it.
It was really cool. And he was an old B-47 guy. He was just cool, really a neat guy. I'm lucky I got to fly with him. I've come across a lot of people in my career that have been like that have been influential on me. But yeah, the Eclipse jet was just, man, what a great airplane to have as my first when it was a first in so many ways. And then a few years went by and two things happened simultaneously. Eclipse went bankrupt. Three things. Eclipse went bankrupt. The financial crisis happened. And my bank sold. Mm-hmm. So I had a job offer to stay with the new bank that bought us. And I also had a job offer because Eclipse went bankrupt, there was no more training going on for these planes. And there was an insurance company that had two of them, and they needed pilots very badly. So they offered me a job too, and it was a little bit sweeter than the offer I got, I thought, from the new bank. So I'm like, well, it's time to be a pilot.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was just, I'd say right place, right time, right equipment. But I mean, even after, by the way, we got the plane and I started flying it, initially I didn't like the bloody thing. I was like, because it was brand new. There were a lot of systems in it that didn't really work right. They didn't really understand the engineers designed the thing, and it was very, very safe. But from a pilot perspective, you'd come back and there'd be something wrong with it. And you'd say, okay, guys, so this is what I saw. And they'll be like, that's not possible. Well, no, I'm telling you, I saw it. And you'd have a witness. It's like, no, this happened. No, that can't happen. You must be mistaken. Like, well.
That's not good help.
Well, to be the first guys to fly something, that's going to happen. So, and this is where I really got lucky. So again, keep in mind, I fought this the whole way. I didn't want this specific airplane, this make and model. I didn't want to get a jet at all, and against my judgment, thank goodness, they wind up with this amazing little jet that, I got to be one of the first pilots trained in. And then I was lucky enough for this company to go bankrupt and stop training people. There were no experts. And because I was involved with the program so early, I went from being a novice to an expert overnight. And that's just like...
People calling you to ask what to do. Oh, yeah,
it's like, hey, what do you think's going on with this thing? It's like, well, the last 3 times I flew it, I saw, it's like you don't, like drawing from my vast experience of 8 months flying the thing, but that at the time, that was a lot. And so, or a year flying it, I guess a year and a half before they went bankrupt. It was still not, I was very much a novice.
So were you doing, now I know you do aviation fuel as well as part of your business. Were you doing the fuel at that time, or did this all sort of go together at the same time?
Mission creep. So it started off, the financial crisis kind of fueled a number of things.
And we're talking 2008?
2008, yeah. So the insurance company that hired me had some cutbacks. So now I went from having this great job that I left banking for to not being employed, which is when I started my company. Because I had to be a contract pilot, which meant that I needed a way to do billing and everything else. And so I just started this little LLC, Pierce Aviation, to do the billing. And I had a little hangar that I had bought, and it was kind of just a place for me to hang out and store a couple of airplanes. And I based my company out of it. And I still have it, by the way. That's hangar 1 out
Gotcha.
at my facility.
In Hammond.
In Hammond, yeah. It's still, it's the same hangar. I've added, some office space and a lobby and everything to it, but it's the same hangar. It just morphed into this because I'd go all over the country looking for gigs because I didn't have work. I tell you what, desperation's the mother of invention. And by the way, backing back into banking again wasn't an option because of the financial crisis. Nobody's hiring. My friends that stayed at the bank are getting laid off, so there just wasn't any work to be had anywhere. So I wound up working for all kinds of folks all over the place, and I met a lot of really cool people. And with their help over the years, the business kind of morphed into what it is. And so now the tagline. Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. I specialize in the sales, service, and operation of the most efficient twin-engine turbojets ever built. So that's not just Eclipse now. There's other manufacturers like Honda that got into that business. But the reason that I can manage the number of planes that I do and deal with them is because as the opportunities came up, I was desperate. So I would take whatever I could.
Absolutely. Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I tell my employees now, I'm like, don't say no. Just don't ever say no. To say, I'll get right back with you and figure it out. And I use rent-a-midgets as an example. I'm like, I don't care what they ask you for. Just say, let me get right back with you. And if it's crazy enough, call me. I'll figure it out. Yeah. But don't tell them no. Well, but unless it's a safety issue. Now, as dealing with flight crews, sometimes you do have to ground an airplane or delay a flight or something. It's not real common, though. And here's why it's not. As I get into the other ancillary services, sometimes out of necessity, I have more control of the aircraft. So I had a guy call me a couple of days ago from Houston, and he was asking about Eclipse jets. And of course, that's my favorite topic as far as aircraft go because, I was there at the beginning. I know the airplane really well. I've got over 4,000 hours flying them. I have an Eclipse service center. That's been my bread and butter for all these years. So I'm telling him about the airplane, and he's like, I don't need the sales pitch. And I didn't even realize I was pitching him. I'm like just telling him about the plane. He says, I've owned a Gulfstream before. I've had a G150. I understand how this works. I'm like, well, that's good. Excellent. So did your Gulfstream ever break? He goes, well, yeah, it has. I'm like, okay. How would you have felt if when you brought it to the service center to get it fixed, every employee at that service center worked for you, and that was your service center? You dictated when it was inducted, when it was released, and they were worried about the airworthiness of the plane first and profitability second, and they were responsible for the dispatch of the plane. Wouldn't that be cool? He goes, yeah, that's impossible. I'm like, no, that's what I do. That's not impossible. That's what we do. So that the purpose of the other ancillary services, the maintenance, the fuel, all the logistics that we do, it's not there for its own right. Although I have a profit motive, I want to make money on all of it. The first purpose of it is to make sure that damn airplane, it flies when it's supposed to. I need that plane to be where and when the owner wants it. Or how do you ever justify an expense that big? Jets aren't cheap. Even cheap jets aren't cheap. So there isn't anything cheap about it.
No, that's kind of what I was getting to because you're talking about these jets and these private aircraft and until you see it, we're talking about fancy things, right? Until someone sees it and really stands next to one, you don't really get it. You had told me what you did and I had a good feeling for it until I went to your facility, which is no longer just one hangar and one office. Now you have space. You have a number of beautiful jet aircraft, which I think you take for sometimes, you're used to seeing. I'm not gonna say you take it for granted, but you're so used to it that you're like, oh, it's neat. But I was sitting next to I believe it was a Hawker, and I was looking at it and just soaking it in. It's just such an incredible piece of machinery. It's cooler than any flipping car I've ever seen. The level of coolness that these machines have. It's overwhelming.
Well, of course, I'm a pilot. I agree.
I concur. Yes, sir. You are correct. So you have now only jet aircraft in your care
that I manage. That's correct.
That you manage. So the aircraft that you are managing, they belong to your clients.
Correct.
And I'm just trying to flesh this out so people understand, what the service is. Because again, unless this is something that you've been told about, you may not even realize this industry exists.
Well, you see that the right way to own a jet, if you can afford it, which people can, you buy the jet, you have the facility to keep it in, you have the fuel, you have the mechanics that work for you, you have spare parts, you have the equipment to service the jet, and the flight crews all work for you, and they answer to somebody that knows what they're doing. That's the right way to do it. It's prohibitively expensive to run a light jet like that. So what you wind up with in our industry is you get a number of guys that are going to charter, which is great. I mean, it makes some sense but it runs the cost up of operating the plane. I mean, you're going to pay a premium on your insurance and everything else, 20% about. Pilot training is going to be more expensive. It's going to be more frequent. You're going to have most pilots don't want to be charter pilots, so there's going to be a rotating door of people coming and going, different guys operating the equipment, breaking it potentially, and then there's going to be a lot of procedures driven by regulations, not necessarily by the owner's wishes. And then, of course, there's rules there for safety. There's a lot of other rules too. And when you own the plane yourself, you can make a lot of decisions on how it's operated that you can't do if you're chartering the plane. For example, it may be legal for a charter operator to take their aircraft into a runway that's 1.5 times the length that they need to land on, whereas I wouldn't do it with a private aircraft because 70% of all, and if you've got any light jet owners watching this, they probably are already aware, 70% of all accidents for light jets are runway excursions where guys accidentally go off the end. Mm-hmm. I don't ever want to come anywhere close to that because you don't get many mistakes in our industry before you develop a bad reputation. And it takes a lifetime to develop a good one and one moment to lose it. So, no runway excursions, let's play it safe.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, well, but then you wind up, there's a lot of external factors. You've got the aircraft owner, for example. He is, if you don't have a manager between you and the pilot, the aircraft owner may look at the specs on the plane and say, well, they said it would land in 4,500 feet. Mm-hmm. Why can't we go into 4,700 foot runway? But then there's a lot of other factors that he doesn't understand. The pilot will look at it, it'll be tight, but it'll be like, I'll give it a shot. I can do that. And that's how one of the reasons these things happen. But the aircraft owners doing it right are going to own all of the facilities. They're going to have their own fuel. They're going to have everybody that touches that plane is going to work for them. And that is how a Fortune 500 company runs a jet, mm-hmm. right? When they say it's going to dispatch, that damn thing's going out. It's dispatching on time all the time. And if that airplane can't dispatch, they have another one that can go out.
But essentially, you're running a private airline at that point. No, not you.
Yeah.
The Fortune 500 company
would
have to literally have their own private in-house airline to shuttle everybody.
It's all the logistics.
And that's what makes it a financial nightmare for somebody who does have the potential need for one, which, there's not a tremendous a number of people in our region, but you're very fortunate you've managed to cultivate a very, I think, when you told me how many aircraft you were managing, I was surprised.
38.
38.
Yeah.
I was genuinely surprised to realize that there's 38, private jet aircraft, beautiful. And then none of them are junk either. I saw them, they're beautiful. Running out of Hammond.
Well, not all of them are based in Hammond.
Yeah, but they end up in Hammond at some point in time, don't they?
But that's where our service center is.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You're sort of hubbing out of there. And again, the service center, we haven't even really gotten to that yet. Because another thing that I genuinely found impressive with your business is the number of moving parts. There's a, you probably would describe it as being a little simple. We just have a flow chart. But there is an incredible amount of moving parts. The service, the parts themselves, the aircraft, the fuel, the hospitality end of it. You really have to take care of your clients. You're really putting forth an effort to give them a wonderful experience with their, some of these people, it's their greatest toy in the world.
Yeah.
And some of them, they just need the damn plane. So I get it. Everybody's a little different, but you really put forth, because I witnessed it, you put forth a lot of effort to make sure that you're treating them like, a guest in their own aircraft, and that they're well taken care of and comfortable and everything's as it should be. And the little rug right before you get on the steps, all that stuff matters. It really does.
It does.
To throw all that is the cherry on top of the fact that you're actually maintaining jet engines and every other system on the aircraft right there.
Right.
I find that very impressive.
It was just mission creep. It's been 16 years. And
what is mission creep? I mean, you do what you got to do?
Yeah. All right. So when I decided I absolutely had to get into maintenance, I had an airplane stuck in a maintenance shop. So you go in for a minor issue and they say it'll be 5 days. So you tell the aircraft owner it's going to be 5 days, and then you're ready to go pick it up. There's been a problem. It's going to be a couple of more days. Oh, crap. Okay, so you tell the guy that you're working for it's going to be another couple of days. Then you go back again, and there's another issue. And this is, unfortunately, in the aviation business, as a nobody with 1 or 2 jets, this is the treatment you can expect from most service centers.
You don't just go to the showroom and pick one. There's not a whole lot of them out there. For example, the Honda Jet that you took me up in Honda Jet a few weeks back. I guess it's been a few months now, but beautiful.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Machine, my gosh, 2023 brand spanking new, gorgeous little airplane, and it was a truly, and I've expressed this to you, but I'm saying it again. It was a truly Zen experience I have never spent a lot of time in private aircraft. So these things are, it's new to me. Especially a jet like that is so well designed.
Oh, it's
so
extremely
smooth.
well thought through.
No vibrations, man.
Yeah.
No sound.
Engines on the wings.
The engines are out on the wings and they're in the back. And when you're sitting in the aircraft, and it was a luxurious, it was a four-seater, but it's very comfortable 4 seats.
Well, there's 4 seats that are club. There was another side-facing seat that I put a cooler on.
Yeah.
And then you can put a passenger in the front because it's single pilot. And then they even have a belted lavatory in some of them. So
you can
could put 6 in the back and 1 in the front for a total of 7 passengers, 8 people, including the pilot.
But you're flying in style. 4 people in the in the first class chairs.
Oh, absolutely.
Beautiful. Yeah. And the pilots. So it's not a large aircraft, but it's very comfortable for the size of that. For us to be in that, I thought it was very comfortable.
Yeah.
And to be in the front of it was a completely different experience because, like you said, the motors are on the wings, man, and they're way in the back. And at that point, there's really no sensation of there being a engine on this thing. There's no sensation of a power being, it's not like a car where it's revving and vroom, vroom, vroom. It's more like a magic carpet.
Yeah.
kind of experience. And it was really cool. And it's just one of those things where if you get to do it, it's truly a unique experience. And, some people do it for their work. And it is, you still have cool moments where you see something. We were talking the other day that you saw an anomaly of light and rainbow effect, prismatic effect at a very high altitude, and it just those sort of things do happen. It's just so you never seen it all.
Oh no, absolutely not. Yeah, and the Honda in particular, they really thought that design through. I pursued them. I begged them to work with me. Because it seemed like a logical next step to the Eclipse jet. It's way more expensive.
How long has Honda had a private jet aircraft in the market?
Ooh, that's a tricky question. They released the first one in 2016. So they haven't been out very long, but it took them 20 years to get there. So they spent a lot of time in development, and they took their time. Everything from where the engines are located, the over-the-wing engine mount, to the lavatory door was thought through. And you can tell as either the aircraft owner or the pilot, the design's amazing. Like they didn't rush into anything.
There's no willy-nilly
anywhere. Oh, no,
anywhere.
Absolutely not. No, the design's great. In fact, this Monday, we do a pilot safety meeting with all of my flight crews Monday morning at 9 a.m. I was covering the bleed air system on the aircraft that we operate because I like to every now and then touch on different systems. The bleed air is what pressurizes the plane, and it provides heat. It gets very cold up there, so it's what warms up the airplane and pressurizes it. And any pneumatic systems, anything that needs air to runs on bleed air from the engines. Basically air you're taking out of the engine. It's important to understand how the system works because that air is really hot and things can happen to it. So you want to be mindful of different malfunctions that can happen. And this is why we do all this training, is to make sure we're ready if something breaks. Well, thank goodness these things are very reliable and they hardly ever break. So I have to take these guys once a week and we go through stuff just in case, and then of course they go through annual recurrent training too on all the airplanes that they're flying. And a lot of my guys are flying multiple types of jets just like I do. So they go to training a lot. But again, our industry is not very forgiving for accidents, incidents, problems. So we don't want to have any ever. And we've got a perfect safety record for 16 years, But it's not for lack of things potentially happening. But the bleed air system in the Honda is a good thing. I'm just going to touch on it real quick. Like normally you have a what we call a bilevel flow control valve, and it controls the air coming off the engine, working all the pneumatics and the pressurization and all of that. Now, most light jets have one of these. And so it's not just controlling the on and off, it's controlling how hard. It's kind of like a rheostat for a light. It's controlling how hard the air is blowing, and it doesn't have infinite settings. It's just, low, high, and off.
Based on demand?
Basically, usually the aircraft computer will demand what it needs based on the scenario. Well, without getting way in the weeds on it, there's different things you need to know as a pilot to truly understand that system. You have to know what to look for when there's a problem. The airplane won't necessarily tell you what's wrong. You'll see something and you have to know enough about the systems to know what's wrong. Now, the Honda's not like that. It's the only light jet I've flown. It's got 3 of these valves on each side, so there's a total of 6 bleed valves on it, which seems ridiculous and excessive. But just because the valve bringing the pressurization in fails, they don't want the valve that controls the anti-ice on the wing to fail. Just because the valve that controls the anti-ice on the wing fails, they don't want to lose the valve that controls the bleed air going to the engine nacelle that keeps the engine nacelle from icing up, from failing. And there's a lot of redundancy built into each side on the Honda that's really amazing, because these little guys that designed it, I don't know if this was Mikamoto Fujino's idea or whose it was, but they put sensors on the other side of every valve. And it's such a simple idea. It's a simple solution to tell what the pressure and temperature of this air is. It's the only jet I've ever flown that has that. It's insane. So like if a valve breaks, the computer knows the valve broke and it's not acting right, and it closes it. And then it tells the pilot, and then the pilot closes it, but the pilot's only closing it so his switch will match the condition of the plane. And it's like, and I'm a little bit jealous of the guys that are learning to fly these, and this is their first jet, because they just don't know the struggle.
Yeah.
Like everything's so simple in this thing. It protects you so much. The older jets, like old technology. It's like, your laptop computer. If you had a laptop computer from the 90s, I mean, God, would you ever use the bloody thing?
Yeah.
Well, we're still flying jets out there, not us, but like a lot of.
You're still flying jets where you have to control alt delete.
Yeah, worse than that. Yeah. Oh goodness gracious. Yeah. But the newest stuff is going to be the coolest. But I've seen like that particular design. They spent a lot of time on every system, like that bleed air system. And I use the lavatory door as an example. The thing I think I showed you, it closes all the way from the ceiling to the floor.
Yeah, it's a sealed closure.
Right. Well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
It's a small space.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've ever flown in a Lear 31 or one of the older Lear jets, the pouty's up in the front. And there's a curtain. I mean, how bad do you have to go?
Yeah.
To use that, I mean, that's pretty bad. And then too, a lot of the aircraft with the lavatories in the back, the outflow valves for the air in the front. So, which that's where the pressurization control happens. The air's going through the cabin. So like, and it's just one of these facts of life about flying in a light jet. If somebody goes into the aft lavatory and has a moment, they share it with everyone.
Yes,
it's a shared
There's
experience.
no mystery.
Yeah, no, but not in the Honda. They thought about this and like, no, we're going to put the outflow valves in the back behind the lavatory and let the air go that way. There's just a lot of little things like that.
It's like being in a little submarine in the air.
Yeah, they really thought the design through quite well. And
well, it was a beautiful piece of machinery, and I was. All I knew was everything I looked at, and I couldn't of course, I don't see what you see because I'm not a pilot, and I don't see what the owners of the aircraft see because I've never bought one before or sold one, and so I don't know, the nuance. But I can tell you everything that I saw was fascinating. The way the controls were, the way the cockpit controls were. It was very sleek. There wasn't a gazillion knobs like you would imagine, a jet would be. It was very, very elegant and clean and just, lots of electronics and beautifully, beautifully done.
Yeah, no, and they really, again, like the cockpit, they designed it where, like, for takeoff, and then this is an older concept, but Boeing used to do this with their aircraft for the overhead panels. All the switches are pointed the same direction for takeoff, and then the same things with the Honda. All the knobs are pointed forward, after you crank up, and you've got norm up and here. Like, if you just take a glance at the center pedestal, at all those buttons that look so complicated, if you see anything that's not on norm or off, something ain't right. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, it's just, it's like that. It's, they designed the thing you'd be able to do a checklist at a glance.
When one of your clients, it needs to go somewhere, what do they do?
Okay. So, the app, we actually designed it and had it built in-house. It's a scheduling software that also acts as a communications hub between all the employees. Now, remember, when I manage somebody's airplane, everybody that touches it works for me. So this is kind of our internal communication, and it's the same program the customer's using in order to verify times, passengers, locations, and all of that. He puts that in there, and then we fill in the rest behind the scenes. They don't see it, but all the times are based on what they put in or what they tell us to put in, and it sends out notifications, which I think in our industry, it's woefully behind the times in general when it comes to aircraft management. You don't see a lot of that, but I mean, if I schedule a hair appointment or I go on Open Table and I get a table at Jafunctus, I'm getting a text message. Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny. Wouldn't you expect the same thing from your private jet?
We do that here at the shop when people's work is ready. When their work is ready, we text them. Yeah, because we can't call them because people don't. Who's going to answer the damn phone? People are busy. So, when they want something, they text us. When their stuff is ready, we text them back. And it seems to be the world that we're living in. So the idea that, someone couldn't ready the jet via text would seem ludicrous.
Yeah, no, we can. So all of it's a web-based program.
So they just tell you where they need to be at what time? And
yeah, if that's the relevant bit, yes. This many people from here to there.
Awesome.
And we fill in the blanks and in what time, of course. If we have any questions, we'll call them. Sometimes we'll just call the dispatcher or me directly, and we'll plug it in the program. But we use the program no matter who they call.
So when you're not being the boss of Pierce Aviation, you're one of the key pilots.
Well, I don't know if I'd say I'm one of the key pilots anymore.
Really?
But, yeah. No, I only flew I flew like 350 hours last year, which is a full-time schedule for a Part 91 guy. But I think part of the reason that number is as high as it is because I am the last guy out. So I'm the emergency guy.
Got it.
So if I manage your airplane, I'm almost certainly going to be typed in it where I can fly it. And I have experience in it because, again, I'm only dealing with a handful of manufacturers. So if you need it at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're probably going to get me, because I know I'll get out of bed. But
you make it happen.
Yeah, I'll make it happen. I'll get out there.
You're not going to be cranky.
I'll pull the plane out myself if I have to. And that's the other thing. Is that if you own a private jet and you don't have that, you don't have access to your own airplane. Mm-hmm. So because most pilots aren't going to go into the FBO, open the FBO, pull out the jet, fuel it.
What's FBO stand for?
Fixed base operator. Sorry,
gotcha.
the gas station.
Gotcha.
Where the plane's stored. But actually my crews, gosh, I'm so proud of these guys. Some of these guys have been with me for a very long time. One of them, Christian, I think you may have met him when you came out. Super guy. He's been with me about 10 years, 12 years. I don't know. Gosh.
He's one of the ground crew guys?
No. He's one of my pilots.
Gotcha.
This guy, gosh, and I think the statute of limitations is expired on this particular offense. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. Yeah, he brought an airplane into Baton Rouge one night, and he had called out the dispatch, my logistics person, had called to make sure someone would be there because it was going to be very, very late. And he pulled in right ahead of a level 5 thunderstorm. So, I mean, the sky's about to fall. Like the lightning, hail, like it's bad, bad, bad weather. Well, when he pulled up at the FBO, nobody was there. So he gets the passengers out and they get out the gate, but he's stuck with this airplane that is about to be hailed on, right? Now this guy, I just love this guy. He opened up the FBO's hangar. Now this isn't our FBO, right?
Got it.
This is somebody else's. But knowing how our philosophy is about taking care of the equipment, this is an emergency to him. He broke into the hangar, stole their tug. I swear to God, pushed the airplane into the hangar, closed the hangar, put the tug up, closed the hangar, and locked it.
Yeah. So no one was the wiser.
The airplane just appeared in the hangar, right? And he shows up mid-morning the next day to take the airplane and leave. And he's like, yeah, I think I owe you for a night of hangar and whatever. He didn't let on, because what do you say to somebody, when you break into their hangar and put your own airplane up? They were supposed to be out for the call out anyway, and they didn't show up. And it was a miscommunication, misunderstanding, whatever. But I've heard this story from several people that the customer service reps were so confused as to how that airplane got in that. Wait, no, you don't have hangar. He's like, oh, it's in the hangar. They're like, no, it's not in the hangar. So they go and look, the airplane's in the hangar. Well,
I think it's that mission creep you were talking about.
Yeah, maybe
got to do what you got to do.
We do what's necessary.
Yeah.
But that's our philosophy, and it's really great. I work with some amazing people. I have not just Christian, but some of the other pilots and some of my maintenance staff. These aren't just ordinary men. They're extraordinary in a lot of ways. I've got a couple of living heroes working for me. I've 2 different employees of mine have been blown up in the line of duty.
My goodness. Doing
Doing really brave things, and when working with them every day, I could totally see how that would happen, because they own, when they take on something, they own it. And I've just been so lucky with the employees that I've gotten, because it's really, anybody in business will tell you it's hard to find good people. I had one guy come to me about 5 months ago. He applied. He was with a large chain FBO, making a good living in a major city. He applied for a job at my place as a lineman, as a fueler, which is, not a glorious job. It's sweaty. It's hot. It's, you smell like jet fuel all the time. It's, but I think it's fun. But, I'm not out there fueling every day either.
It's important.
Yeah, it's very, of course. And you have to have responsible, good, competent people doing it, or you're going to damage something. And he applied to work with us, and he told me what he was earning. I'm like, oh my God, 'cause we can't, this is Hammond, Louisiana. I can't pay you that. And he goes, I just want to work here. Like, why? He says, I met Hunter Thomas. He's one of my pilots. And he says, anybody that's that happy working somewhere, I want to work there.
I work there too.
Yeah, I got to introduce you to Hunter. He's just, look, Hunter'd probably be like that working for UPS, FedEx, Delta, whatever. He's just like that, But I'm really lucky to have these guys working with me, because they bring in more good people. And just like this kid talked to Hunter when he was at an FBO at this other city, and he was like, I want to work where this guy works, because it sounds awesome.
Well, I think that's that modesty we spoke about earlier. You say you're lucky, and I told a guy one time I was lucky about something, and he looked at me, he said, you're not a lucky, kid. He said, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing when the time is right, and then the good things happen to you.
Well,
and
there's a little luck in there anyway.
I think so. Oh, for sure. Hey, listen, you know what's lucky for what my experience is lucky for the do-overs I've gotten. Lucky for the way things could have gone wrong and didn't. That's the real luck, in my opinion. That's what real luck looks like. Like, was that a buzzard that just went by? That's luck. You didn't hit the goddamn thing, right?
Right.
But being there, doing what you love in a way that's pure, it's contagious, because your clients see it, the people that work for you see it. You surround yourself, with people that feel similar. Like you speak about the nobility that some of these people take in their work. That's that that's a corporate culture, which of course corporate culture is kind of a gross phrase, but it is what it is, because that's what people see. I think people see you in the leadership role, doing what you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to be doing it, and then the people who do have that nobility in them, that's that want to just work for a place where they can feel, like they're among their own.
Right.
I think there's great value in that, and it's probably not as much luck as you think. I think you're doing a lot of leg work, and you look up, you put your head down and you do your thing. Right.
Right.
You do what needs to be done. You do what you must. You do the best that you can. No one's perfect. I'm not, certainly, but you put your nose down and you grind, right? And you look up and you go, hey, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
You put your head down and you grind.
Which brings me, you saying that just made me think of something. Recently, I looked up and I'm like, I'm the old guy.
Yeah.
When did this happen? It's like I'm the veteran. It's crazy because, and then, of course, in all of our industries, we've had issues with, during the COVID pandemic, a lot of people, I read an article recently that said over 30% of the retirement age folks retired during COVID. That really hit home with me because I know for flight crew, it was much higher. Like, because the major airlines, all of the major operators, they offered tremendous benefits to these guys if they would retire. So anybody that was of retirement age was going to get a fat paycheck if they went home. And then after that, we had this hiring boom because, everybody's cutting staff. And then right after COVID, we had all of this travel, all of the demand for flight crew. So a lot of guys were getting hired that were less experienced than people that would have been hired a year before or 2 years before that. So and then the guys that would have helped bring them up mostly are gone. Mm-hmm. So it's like that's been weird. That's one weird thing about the business now that I've had to become a teacher. Whereas, it's one thing to be an expert and to know what you're doing and to tell people what to do, but that's not enough. You have to be able to teach. And I remember Tom Segrist. He's a local guy. A lot of people who watch your podcast probably know him. He was a principal of Our Lady of the Lake School here. He was the admissions director for St. Joseph Seminary College. He was a flight instructor. He taught me to fly. I knew him in both of his other roles too. He was the first principal of my first grade school.
Cool.
Yeah. And anyway, great guy. But he was the guy that signed me off from my flight instructor rating, again, when this was a hobby for me. And I'm like, okay, Tom, well, now I know everything that you told me I had to learn in order to pass the test. What do I really need to know to be a teacher? And he goes, okay, well, I'm glad you asked. He says, you need to know how to count landings, write small, and be patient. Like, okay, that last one is the killer. Be patient. Mm-hmm. I am anything but patient. So like I have to just contain myself sometimes when I'm trying to teach somebody something, because it's like, and I'm sure Tom felt that way with me. Why aren't they getting this? But that's challenging sometimes. I'm not mature enough for that. I'm having to learn on the fly, but I'm not alone either. A lot of operators are feeling that right now. And I'm going through an insurance renewal right now, too. So once a year you sit down with your insurance underwriters, and the company gets big enough. Now I've got my insurance premium is about $1 million. All in, it's ridiculous. But I would never would have thought, but it's not just my stuff. It's all the airplanes too. But still, that's stupid. And they look at risk under a fine, I'm under a microscope as far as the risks that I take and what I have to convince the underwriters is okay now. And they're starting to have a problem with older captains. Today I was told that one of my favorite captains, he's 74 years old, they don't want him flying anymore. Now, I get where they're coming from the standpoint of him being old and they don't want somebody dying in the cockpit. But what a resource to lose just because he's 74. And in this case, this guy's 74 and spry, and he's at a point in our industry where we don't have a lot of these guys anymore. We don't have a lot of guys who are 74 that want to fly airplanes, much less can and are competent and healthy enough to do it.
Well, 74s aren't all the same. You know, you've got used up 74, and then you've got a guy who's kept himself in decent condition and is sharp and has the ability to, like you said, something to offer. That's a terrible loss.
And then in addition to that, I'd say so single pilot jet guys in particular, the guys that fly jets that want to fly by themselves, they kind of have a swagger about them. You know, they're not exactly, you know, normal flight crew. These guys they're studs. They know it. They're at the top of their field, and you know, they can be rowdy a little bit. You know, like if they're at that level where they know that how good they are, but I mean, you know, and they have confidence without being arrogant in the cockpit. I don't like. I mean, I've seen guys, the other kind of guys. We don't have any of those, thank God. But these guys are on their best behavior when this guy's around. Mm-hmm. And I can tell a difference. You know, I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous of this older captain because I don't know what he does so different from me, but when he walks in the room, these guys stand up a little straighter.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such a privilege to be able to work with him. He's an old Air Force officer. He was in the Strategic Air Command. I mean, just a neat guy. But
he's got a presence.
Yeah, he walks in the room and automatically everybody's at attention.
Yeah.
And I mean, military, not military, whatever, everybly loves him.
Yeah,
and
it puts off a vibe.
Yeah, they just want to impress him. They just want to, you know, they want to excel when he's there.
Yeah.
And the insurance industry is going to tell me I can't use them. It's like anyway, I'm not done with them yet. But yeah, it's the industry's definitely changing as far as insurance regulation, all of that. Like I had an underwriter tell me last year that they're afraid of single pilot jets that don't have co-pilots. Now, just speaking from the areas that I've studied, and I hope I'm not getting too far in the weeds here.
No, this is what
you can edit it out. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. Look,
Yeah.
I like to know. I want to know. I want to look behind the curtain as far as possible, and I want to talk about. Your clients because you know, to a degree, I want to understand the utility that people are applying to their you know, private jet aircraft. What's their motivations? How many, you know, what's it like? How many of them are using it to, you know, I suspect they're all linked to a business in some way or another. I suspect that. I could be wrong.
No, the guys that are buying, by the way, there are guys that buy jets just to have a jet.
Yeah.
They're not my customers.
No,
my guys are interested in efficiency or they wouldn't be dealing with me.
I don't get the money's no object people either.
No. I'm not surprised. No.
I don't. Maybe I don't know what those people are, but they don't shop here.
I don't know that you'd want them.
Yeah.
I've worked for them.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. I may have come across a few of them. I probably deterred them.
Yeah. No, me too. You know, over the years. Yeah.
I have a way of repelling those guys or seeming incompetent or not worthy. Not worthy is the word.
Anyone who has a recognition for the value that their money is, that's worked for it, is going to want to go to you. And I feel, you know, the same way about my business. Like I represent value to the aircraft owner, so that's what you know, that's what I offer to them. How
fortunate that you're right here in Hammond. You know, right here in the region. You know, this is the sort of industry that I imagine would be in the middle of Dallas or in the middle of Atlanta or, you know, in Los Angeles or in Las Vegas or some, you know, places like that. And the fact that you're doing it right here, you know, locally is cool, man. It's cool.
I want to open an office in Dallas. I've been looking at that.
I bet you can do it.
I
bet you can do it.
Working on it.
Right on, man. Well, listen, I know you're a busy dude. Thank you so much for coming and talking with me about this and shining a little light on what you do. It's a fascinating and unique job that you have and service that you provide, and I wish you the absolute best. And maybe we'll fly into the FBO in Dallas one day.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks a lot, man.
My pleasure.